Hey everyone, welcome to this month's community challenge. This month we had the subject of cute, and we're going to be going over all of the entries from our side of the community and giving them feedback. We did do this as part of a collaboration with the GitGud community, who were absolutely amazing. If you want to see the video they made for their side of the community, then check out the link in the description. As always, if you enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like button. And most importantly, if you want to get involved in these challenges, feel free to check out Discord. The next challenge that we're going to be doing is over a 3-month period, and it's dragons and dinos. So as always, I'm joined by Lucas. We're going to be going over each piece individually and giving 2 or 3 points of feedback. We're going to be starting off with Rob's little mouse. We had quite a few of these in.
Yeah, it was quite popular.
Yeah,
choice.
I honestly adore this model. I think these models are so cool. We did have a lot of discussion. For anyone who is curious, there is a behind the scenes video in the members area discussing, like, going over with yourself, Magnus and Bruce, like the judging of this stuff as well.
You felt pretty strongly that this wasn't cute. It was a bit threatening.
Yeah, there was a trend that came up with all of these, wasn't it? Like, they were all quite... I don't find them cute. I think that them being a mouse is cute, but it's quite intimidating. It's quite a threatening pose, isn't it?
It is, but I think it still fits the theme, because just what it is, he's a little cute guy protecting his cheese at all costs. So, but the non-metallic is really amazingly painted, and you can tell from a distance, we were viewing it at a distance just then, all of the elements are clearly readable. You know what the material is from a distance. And the eyes really stand out. I know that's probably the point that you think doesn't make it cute, because you just got these black, like, opal stones staring at you. It's a bit of a dead gaze. But I would say that everything on the model, maybe apart from the cheese, is really, really well painted in terms of getting the material across.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I would say, like, the cheese, it looks quite... I would say artificial, because there's a lot of texture on it, whereas you think of cheese, it's quite smooth and waxy. Yeah. And I'm not quite getting that from that material.
Yeah, I think subject aside, like, we talked about this a lot, so I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. I don't find it particularly cute, other than the fact that it's a mouse. But when it comes to actual feedback, I'm in complete agreement with you. Non-met is really well done. The texture on the mouse's head, I think the balance is really, really good. Because we talk about, like, the amount of conversations that I have with people around, like, hairy horses, like people painting 28mm horses and they're painted hair on it and it looks weird.
Yeah.
Painting hair and fur and that sort of stuff is such a hard balance, because generally with scale you don't see that much of it. And I think something that's really impressive on this is you get the impression that he has hair on his head.
Yeah. But
it's not massive bushy hair or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really like the painting on the mouse. I think it's lovely. I think the base is really the problem. So
yeah.
The cheese just looks weird. One thing I will say for the cheese, to be fair, I think it's really nice and really impressive, the colour that he's got in it. Like, there's hints of green in it and everything. That's really lovely, right? The problem is the texture had to be far more subtle, as you say.
Yeah.
And I have this pet hate with edge highlights, right? So I'm going to put this out there right now. I just realised my camera's proper drunk. There we go. That's better. Just try and sort that out. Wow. Have fun editing this, Steph. So when you paint a surface with texture, right, you're implying that there is a material there. You're implying that it's a rougher surface.
Yeah.
It kills me when you have perfectly straight, clean, immaculate edge highlights, because it no longer matches the material that you're creating. And I have this thing at the moment. I've always had this thing, but it's always in my head, because it's a priority for me in my own painting. The minute you lose, you have to maintain immersion, right? So a simple decision like clean, straight edge highlights on a textured material surface, you actually lose the illusion of what you're creating. And it breaks immersion in the piece.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating for me. So I think this is the big thing on this.
Yeah, it's also like there's a big area of highlight on the flat of the surface where on the front of the cheese compared to it being on the top, that kind of gives it more of a front lit appearance, but the figure is being top lit. But going back to scale, I think the tufts of grass are great, but I think it would be even better if that was put all the way around the cheese, because there's a lot of dead space, and I think if that cheese was surrounded by the grass, it would just make the scale kind of undeniable and immediate, and give just blend it in a bit more, because there's a lot of dead space going on.
I think, I agree with that. So with you talk about the planes and the cheese, like even if it was front lit, the top plane of this cheese and the side plane of the cheese would be a different value regardless. And it's not as well.
Uniform. Yeah.
So I completely agree. I think you're bang on there. As for the grass, again, I think you're right. The problem is you have it's just a different level of finish as well with this grass. Yeah. You've got too much dead space here. So as you say, more grass would help that. But also, like, it's just not painted. This is not painted anywhere near to the same standard as this. And you can have that. I think it's probably worth pointing out. You can have your model where it's painted, not worse, but less and less refined as you move away from the focal points. But I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, it has to be a gradual reduction.
Yeah.
Not this is amazing and then this is good.
Yeah, it can't be 0 to 100.
Yeah, because a minute, this is such a harsh comment, but I say it to so many people, like a consistently good result is better than an inconsistently amazing result. Because as soon as you put good next to amazing, like good looks.
Yeah.
I shouldn't swear on a YouTube video, actually. Good looks bad. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah. If I was to be really nitpicky, I know we just said the non-metallic is great, and I still think it is great, but if I was to be super, super nitpicky, I would love to see more of the yellow tones from the cheese on the underside of the blade and the kneecap. There's a little bit there, but I think it could be put forward a lot more, because that blade is going to be nice and shiny, so it's going to therefore reflect a lot more saturated, like pure tones, like a mirror of that cheese. It's a downward facing angle. And likewise, you could have maybe a bit more blue tone into that black on the blade, especially where you got those Terminator lines and the shadows on the blade. It's quite stark and doesn't have a lot of tone into it. So I think it could be softened up a bit more.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, cool. I'm a big fan of this. I do want to point out, like, we're going to be giving feedback. Feedback is obviously going to be based around the negative stuff. So we're not saying we don't like these, but that's the point of this video.
It's lovely. Yeah.
All right.
A fun one. Yeah.
So this is Dorasauruses.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you start on this because I really like this, and I'm a bit biased.
I really like the color scheme, and I think maybe the lighting of the photography doesn't do it justice in terms of how well it's painted, because there's clearly a lot of thought and detail, especially on the base and freehanding those stones. And you've got some intense color transitions on, I'm going to call it a lollipop, because that's what it looks like to me, but the staff has a lot of color going on, and those kind of intense transitions are very hard to pull off if you're trying to blend it, so you've got to be quite patient in how you lay down paint on one on top of the other. And I think it's worked out really well. It's nice and readable, and I love the color, like the complementary colors in the eyes, going from purple to the turquoise aqua kind of blue. I think it really pulls you in and keeps the face as a focal point, because as I said, you've got a lot going on the staff, but the eyes are still remaining a focal point for me. But in terms of improvement, you can see certain recesses on maybe the hand and the wrist. There's a recess there, and I can't see that it's been picked out. There's certain volumes of the model that don't really read well, and I think it could benefit from a little bit more subtle black lining, maybe on the underside, around the eyes, especially if you have more of an intense black. I feel like the colour will the colour will pop out way more and just make it more attractive.
Yeah, honestly, I'm in complete agreement. I have nothing to disagree with you on that. I think the biggest thing holding it back is effectively readability. Yes, some things could be blended better, but I don't think that's really necessarily a relevant thing to be talking about. I think there are just certain sections which are just kind of blurring into each other.
Yeah.
I am going to call it a lollipop head, because that's how I see it. I love it.
Yeah. like if we were to change it to black and white, the staff and the fabric on the, I don't want to call it the jacket, but you've got a collar and the sleeve, and if you were to connect that to the staff, it kind of should create like a kind of semicircle or a circle that halos the face to create a focal point, but the value doesn't, there's a mismatch in value. Like the arm has a high value there on black and white, but that's down to the sheen of the paint, not necessarily the value of the color that's being used. And I think you can bring more attention to the focal points and create more.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think as well, I think this is actually, the face itself is actually very dark. There's a bit of a missed opportunity here. This dark of this face on the underside here is really lovely.
Yeah.
It's that in itself is going to separate, is quite a strong separation from the staff and the collar. But the reason why I say that is because there's quite a bit of a missed opportunity with the head, because what you can do, especially with the subject of what this is, you can push that bright section of the head so much more. And I'm going to do it a little bit, right? So if you push that just a little bit, you can see how it really, really separates it. It makes the head pop so much. And you can really push that so much more as well, like really, really extreme. And it will look amazing. So the highlight could have just lifted it up because you've already got such an extreme dark as well.
Yeah, that's going to do two things. It's going to make the face more of a focal point, but it's also going to make the expression of the face more clear, and I think it'll make it much more cute as a result.
Absolutely, completely agree. But yeah, I love this. I think it's really nice. I think, readability. Yeah, anyway. What we got next? Son of Onion Hammer. Everyone really liked this, actually.
Yeah, it was a cool idea. It's another one of those models, I don't know where you would find it or what you would type in to get this, but it's really cool. And I love the concept as a whole. I really like it. I know you were critical on the backdrop, and I understand why you didn't like the cloud specifically, and the just heavy texture work. Comparing it to the model, there's a big disparity in terms of quality.
Yeah. I think the thing is, clouds are supposed to be fluffy, regardless of what sort of clouds they are. And these ones always they feel very sharp, right? And the thing I want to point out, this is an opinion, right? This isn't fact. But when you work with texture, right, as in physical texture, and if you look at oil paintings and that sort of stuff, and they work with like a trowel, for example, and they create these brush marks, these thick brush marks. These brush marks are always done with intention, right? And the brush marks in themselves are really attractive and really stunning. Now, that's not saying that this isn't, but what happens with the texture on this is it's all dripping down, right? It all looks like it's going down. So it feels like it's melting.
Yeah.
Right? So my problem with it is not that it's not good. It's just that it doesn't feel like it's intentional.
Yeah. I think if the mass of those clouds was kind of feathered out, so it was flat, and you slowly build up to like the height of the cloud, because what's happening here is you've got such an intense and abrupt ending to that mass of the cloud that it's got a shadow, and that kind of defeats the whole look of a cloud. It's going to be quite translucent and soft and well lit, really diffuse, and you wouldn't have shadows on a cloud basically, and you've got a cast shadow being created by just how big that object is on the backdrop. So I think if you were to feather it out and incorporate some brush strokes, like some normal brush strokes, to help blend it into the backdrop, it would just feel a lot more natural. But going to the model itself, it's really well painted in contrast to what we said about the backdrop. I think the skin of the pig looks like skin, and you've got a nice reflection going on the goggles, and the leather work as well is really nice.
I completely agree. I think the pig is lovely. Yes, there's it could have more colour. There's certain bits that could be a little bit cleaner, for example, but I think overall it's really, really nice. I think the bass just lets it down a little bit, truthfully.
Yeah, and the only other thing that comes to my attention is like the wings are quite high value, and the clouds behind it are very high value. So maybe it would be a good choice to darken the wings down a bit, because you're kind of creating a tangent of values. If we were to change it to black and white, it wouldn't be as readable as the figure itself.
Yeah, that's fair actually.
But that's a nitpick, but that's what we're here to do. So
yeah, makes sense. Okay, cool. What have we got next? This one.
Duncan's, yes.
I love this.
I think, yeah, it's a really cool idea, and it's a different play on cute. I know we were contesting whether or not it was cute, because it's hard to really... It's just such a different idea. I think it's cute, but to get straight into the feedback, it's just there's a big absence of colour. It's very much...
I was going to say
somber
this.
because of that. It feels really somber and not cute. It feels sad because it's just black and white, and the only colour you get is from the illumination of the owl. And I think it would be a great thing to play on the contrast of blue and orange, bring more blues into the dark. I
was about to say, so
and that'll just bring a lot more life to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, the first thing that pops into my head, and I know this might seem really crazy for anyone watching, because you're doing something at night, there shouldn't be a lot of colour, it's all going to be dark, but you can still inherently use dark colours, like colours that are not luminous, right? So you can get lots of blues in this, you can get lots of purples in this, you can get like the green. The reason why the green of the grass doesn't look out of place is because that grass is so dark, right? So you can still use these colours in such a subtle, dark way, and actually it would just lift everything you're trying to do with the light. It would actually reinforce it by pushing in dark versions of those colours. So as crazy as it is, I'm completely with you. The biggest fallback on this one is actually the lack of colour.
Yeah.
Like greys are.
And I think...
Go on, you go first.
Okay. Like, there's only... In terms of other things, rather than just lack of colour, I think there could be a bit more continuity of light, because you've got a really strong light on the owl bear. That's what it is. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's an owl bear on its face, but there's no light on the front of his front legs. I think that owl is going to be emanating a sphere of light, and at the moment it's only hitting the owl's face. I'm not sure how much that branch would really obscure the light, but there's definitely going to be some more light on the underside of his jaw and on those front legs. It just feels like it's got a very narrow kind of radius, this light. It feels really intense, but there's not a lot of fall off to it. It doesn't really interact that much with the surroundings. I think it could do more, and that will fix a lot more of the issues with the piece.
Completely agree. Right, okay, cool. So we'll move on from Duncan's. I do really like the owlbear, to be fair. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ali's evil cat.
The murderous cat.
The murderous cat, yeah. So I think, like, on the subject of cute, this really is more of a reflection on how I feel about cats, to be honest. I do like cats, right? I genuinely do. But I've never found them particularly cute unless they're a kitten.
Okay.
Because they're always hunting something, right? Or they're always putting their claws into you. Or, right? And these birds are about to get murdered. So this isn't cute to me.
It's cute enough. It's a cat with some birds. It's a cute one.
Yeah, I think I'm just... you know where my head's at with this.
Yes.
But, so, feedback. Right, mine... This is... I can't stand ice cream bases. Right? So, you like... Where's my pen? This...
Yeah.
This is a big thing for me. You break immersion. So when we talk about bases, what you always want to do is you always want some kind of broken line if it's on a plinth. If it's not floating or something like that, you always want a broken line. The minute you have this symmetrical style mound, it just looks like an ice cream, right? And you lose immersion in the piece, because at the end of the day, you would never see that in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's the biggest thing for me, actually. I think they're like, this is a really lovely piece, but I can't stop looking at this. And what's funny is if I just get rid of, if I do that, that just looks 1,000 times better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's more succinct. Yeah.
No ice cream cones, people. You come to Fen and I judge your piece and I see an ice cream cone. That's it.
Yeah. In terms of colours, I think something I didn't notice at the time, but I've noticed now, is the other bird is very grey compared to the other blue bird. And I know there's more than likely a perfectly valid reason why it's grey, but when it's a grey bird on a grey rock, it loses a lot of readability.
Yeah, I never really noticed it.
I could kind of say the same for the bluey grey mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's probably a reason why they're that colour, but it looks a bit too monotone, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think the thing is, greys are rubbish, right? I'm not sure what your opinion is on this, right? But grey.
I love greys.
Well, so the thing is, anything grey is a rubbish colour, right? As in, let me explain. And I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on this. But the minute you introduce grey into a model, that is an area that you don't look at, right? So if you have a big chunk of grey, everything is going to overpower it.
Yeah.
So greys are not helpful in that regard, right? So if you paint a bird grey, we're not really going to look at that bird, right? If you paint a piece of fabric grey, you're not really going to look at that fabric. But grey, on the other hand, is incredibly powerful because it's so easily influenced by everything else. If you put a nice grey into a skin tone, well, all of a sudden that grey is now a nice cold tone. Like it's an incredibly useful tool. But if you have massive chunks of grey, it's not powerful enough to do anything for a piece of that model as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it needs to be used to the correct amount. It's very easily overdone.
Yeah.
And more to the point on this one, it's being used on a focal point. Like that bird is a focal point, is in front of the one behind it. If it was the other way around, we wouldn't notice it as much, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that bird is front and centre.
Yeah, absolutely. Grey is something that we should be using tactically, not to smack someone in the face and go, here's my focal point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tactical colour. It's a supportive colour. It's a supportive value, whatever you want to call it, supportive hue. The minute you desaturate something, it becomes supportive.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why grey bases are not generally very strong. And it's why we're always talking about pushing colour into them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And on that note, you could push a lot more. Because rocks, when you look at rocks up close, they've got every single colour under the sun in them.
Yep.
So you can put a little bit more colour into that rock.
Yeah.
And like only the other thing I can think of is maybe adding a bit more light direction onto the rock. It's quite front lit and the top of it's quite dark.
Yeah.
Maybe adding a bit more light on top of that. And the only other thing I can think of would be a nice strong specular, a couple of speculars on the cat's eye. That would make it a little bit cuter. Maybe you'd think it would be cuter with some speculars in the eye. Yeah.
I also think it's worth pointing out, like, I get this is an opinion. No, I'm gonna put it down to a fact, actually. So when you paint something so colourful, right? When your piece, your focal point has so much colour in it, it allows you to push other areas with more colour than they should have. So because this cat is so saturated and so vibrant, well, the base and the rocks and the birds, like especially the grey bird, like those areas actually can be pushed almost abnormally colourful, right? You can push the saturation levels abnormally, so you can introduce a huge amount of colour even if it's not correct, because you're still going to have less colour than your actual subjects itself, so it will still look good. Absolutely. So by painting in this way, and genuinely the cat's really cool, I really like it, it means you can literally just vomit colour everywhere, right? And it will still work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I like this. I think the base and the bird, it's really funny because I didn't even notice the bird was grey.
Yeah, me neither. It's a cute cat.
I said this on the other video, right? I'm going to bow to you guys on whether this is cute or not. I do love cats. I'm not saying I hate cats. I really, really like cats. I've never found them cute animals. I always feel
just like dogs more.
Yeah, I do like dogs more. Yeah, absolutely. But I always just feel like they're quite sinister. I feel like they're always hunting me, right? I think it's probably something to do with my childhood. Do you know what? Actually, I had a cat. My mum had a cat called Tyson when I was a kid, when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And like,
that's a good name for a cat.
Mate, my mum loved this cat. It was a massive black cat, and it was evil. I've got to stop swearing. I'm really bad. I apologise, everyone. Steph's going to beep all this out. But it was genuinely evil. It'd like attack us and everything. And my mum would be like, "What did you do to my cat? Get out!" She'd like kick us out of the living room instead of telling the cat off. It was mental. See, this is why I have problems, right?
Yeah, it's all making sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyway. All right, Winnie's piece, right?
Yes.
So
one of my favourites.
Yeah, and we had a discussion on whether this lizard was cute, didn't we? The dragon.
Did we? Oh, it's faded into all the talk about cats not being cute. To be honest,
yeah,
it's a cute lizard.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're in agreement then. I love it. Yes. I love this piece. I think there's a little bit of a problem with the volume on the forehead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when the cheek, when you've got this much light on the cheek and these areas of the face, well, ultimately there should be a little bit more bright up here on the forehead.
Yeah, especially when you got a highlight on the hair.
Yeah,
it needs to connect somehow. You can't have a massive absence of light.
Yeah, and the yellow in the head from the hair is beautiful, by the way. Like, I really, really like it. But the absence of light on the head is very jarring, and the minute you fix that, actually, this is really, really quite stunning.
Yeah, and I will say from personal experience, foreheads are really tricky.
Oh,
sometimes, depending on the angle, they don't get any light.
Yeah,
they don't get any speculars, and sometimes you need way more light than you think.
Yeah, and some people, right? Some people, clearly talk about myself. Some models have just got flat foreheads, right? It's infuriating,
yes.
like deadly flat. Right, and it's like, well, where does my gradient drop off? Do you know what I mean? They're really, I completely agree with you. Like, and this is why I much prefer painting male figures and like worn female figures, because the simple fact is they're easier because you've got sharper angles, you got more wrinkles. And the minute you get to, let's say, youthful skin, especially female youthful skin, it becomes so much harder.
Yeah.
Because everything's soft.
Yeah, it's very demanding.
Yeah.
But I would say once you put that light in on the forehead, my eye is being drawn to the ear a lot more. I think that would be.
I was going to say this.
To soften that off with a bit more tone.
Yeah.
Bring in, because you've got a lot of magentas in the skin tone. I think if anywhere there would be red or pink or magenta, it would be that ear. Yeah. Just to knock it off a bit. You can still have the strong light on the top of the ear, but there's a lot going on. I'll call it the meat of the ear. There's a lot going on the inside of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Completely agree. What do we think of... I think the hair is quite good, considering this hair is quite hard to paint. But what do we think of the blue fabric?
I like it, but I think it's too grey in value. It's quite flat. Mm-hmm. And I think it needs a bit more of a vignette, a natural vignette to the bottom of the piece to give that more volume. Yeah. Especially where it connects into the armpit. There's not much of a cylindrical volume, because that shadow is not as dark as it could be, in my opinion. Yeah. Especially when you start comparing it to the Terminator of the cheek, where it goes into that green bounce light. It's really harsh, and there's not the same treatment given to the rest of the fabric and materials. Yeah, I completely agree with you. This is where my head was at as well. I wasn't sure if I was being a little bit too picky with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, this is exactly it. Like, as soon as even if you just lower the value range in the bottom half, like even just that itself helps make the compositional viewing area smaller and pushes focus inwards. Yeah, it just makes it nicer, makes it tighter. Absolutely. One thing that I will say though, I think the dragon's head is really, really well done. It's incredibly well done. It's kind of nailed the feeling of, like, because reptilian skin is quite waxy and like it's got a satin sheen to it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting that feeling when I'm looking at this.
Yeah, it's so well done, right? So she's amazing. She is really good. She is really good. But the dragon's head is incredible.
Yeah.
Really, really like it.
In terms of the dragon, I think because of the membrane of the wing, that silhouette gets lost a bit. I think you could have a bit more orange, or just an uplight onto that silhouette.
Yeah.
And I know we when we were doing the judging, we saw this from a different angle, and I think the green bounce light onto the cheek of the girl is really strong.
Yeah.
You can't quite see it from this angle, but it's really vibrant green, almost the same vibrancy as the dragon itself. I think it could be a bit more desaturated in terms of how bounce lights would interact with that skin.
Yeah, because that's basically like as soon as you get that reflection, you lose the saturation because it's not a metallic.
They're complementary. Yeah, complementary colours. It's gonna meet in the middle somewhat.
Yeah, but yeah, this one's amazing. One of my favourite, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same.
So this is
another one that not many people thought was cute, but it's cute adjacent. It's K-pop emo cute.
Yeah. It's just interpretive, isn't it? We all like this is one of the reasons why I love this subject, right? Is it really shows that when you like the amount of people go to competitions and go, oh, why didn't mine win? Like the whole behind the scenes judging video we did and the feedback, like this really goes to show that your work doesn't need to be the best on the day, right? It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, because at the end of the day, what I mean by that is like it's just 4 idiots judging your work, right? They're going to interpret things differently.
Yeah.
So I don't find this cute at all, right? But I guess what? I can be wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway. Yes. So I'm going to let you start on this one because I think, if memory serves, I was quite talkative on this before.
Okay. Yeah, to start off, I think like all of the materials, when you look at the hair, the fabric, especially the satin ribbon and the buttons, the gemstone, everything reads as you would expect in terms of material. The satin ribbon has a nice range of values, and the other fabric is quite flat as it should be, and you got a nice highlight across the top of the forehead for the hair. And yeah, the volumes on the skin are lovely. You can tell a lot of time and effort's been taken to really
this is amazing.
A nice soft feel, because we were just talking about how painting youthful female skin is very challenging, and you can see why in terms of how smooth it needs to be and how soft it needs to read. And especially the lips, like the highlights on the lips are just really great. Something that Dan does really well. Looking at his other work, his highlights on the lips, which again, they're really tricky to get right because it's so easy to overdo it. You've got to be very specific in where you put in the highlights, the specular lights, and I think he's done it really well for this one.
I think, like, my favourite bit, we were talking about greys earlier. This, right?
Yeah, the shadow.
If I pull this colour out.
Yeah.
Where is it? There we go.
Very grey.
It's very desaturated. It's very grey. It's such an incredible use of saturation or lack of saturation. It's actually my favourite part of the face. I think because it's so almost elegantly done, which is wildly difficult. Honestly, the skin is incredible on this. Skin is beautiful, like really, really nice. So yeah, I will say this annoys me.
What is it? I'm trying to...
This line.
Or the cast shadow.
Yeah, I
how they don't...
It's not that sharp. So here's... You can get away with sharp lines on cast shadows, right? Cast shadows are very hard to do, but there's always a certain... So they become softer, right? The further and further away whatever's causing the cast shadow is, right? That line becomes softer and softer. But what we don't talk about is also the relevance of what it's surrounded with from an artistic perspective. So earlier, like when I turned around and said, the more colourful your piece is, the more colour you can put into your base or into the rest of the model, and it will look it will look good even if it's not naturally so. Well, the thing with this is when you place a cast shadow into something like this model is painted softly, right? So the minute you place a hard line, a sharp line, something that powerful, it just draws you in, right? Because you've got this extreme contrast in softness and sharpness. So from an artistic perspective, and I get this is up for debate, just softening that cast shadow line would harmonize better with this piece. I feel like basically there's too much contrast in it, right? It's too extreme.
Yeah.
And it's drawing me in. Like, I'm looking at the neck, like I'm looking at the face, and then I'm going, I keep pulling down to that cast shadow on the neck, and it's distracting me.
Yeah, now you've pointed it out. It's drawing a lot of my attention. I think the technical term for it is called penumbra, where you soften the transition.
I'm going to write that down.
Cast shadow. But once you've pointed that out, it's got me looking elsewhere on the model where you see the collarbones or the traps.
Yeah.
That top is really dark on the light side of the model, which I would expect if you got the cast shadow being where it is. I would expect that shoulder to be much, much brighter. It's
having a knock-on effect to everything else as soon as we start seeing it. Yeah. Completely agree.
And I think this is a personal preference. I really like softening my shadows a ton and putting, I wouldn't say completely artificial light, but definitely more light into shadows than there would naturally be. And I think that would also help soften out that kind of stark contrast that's going on right now with the shadows.
And the thing is, Daniel is an incredible painter, right? He's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And the issue is, like, the better you become, the harder it gets, right? And one of the reasons for that is because the better you become, the smaller your issues are, and potentially the more of an impact they have. And this cast shadow is a perfect example, because it just not... You, as soon as you see it, then you start seeing other things that come with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
There's only, like, one more thing I'll point out. That'd be the highlight on the gemstone. It feels quite small. I know, I'm also aware that as soon as you start increasing the size of that becomes a big focal point.
Yeah, I think so. For me, the what I was going to point out is in the same train of thought here. This is your focal point, right? No matter what, though, this is your second.
Yeah.
The face is incredible, but this is not. This is nice, but there's a lot of weaknesses in it. So, for example, what you've got is you've got a pink-purple palette and you're using blues, right? So the cold side of the color wheel is effectively your supportive side of the palette. Well, you have nothing here. It's all red and all gold. Whereas actually, if you start introducing other colors, like if you just push this red into purple, first of all, it's going to give you more interest. I've just realized I've left that line on it. I don't know if I can get rid of it now. God, there we go. So if you push, you shift the hue, right? What this is going to do straight away is it's going to push focus straight into the gem, right? Gem is now framed better just by doing that. Now the gem's popping. The other thing is, I get that you want to do shiny stuff, right? Here, this nice shine spot. But what you could also think about is, earlier we talked about this idea of as soon as you put hard lines into this, it becomes incredibly powerful, right? With the cast shadows, it's a little bit too much with the one on the neck. Well, you can do exactly the same thing to draw people in. And what I mean by that is, instead of just having these lines of light that run through this way, right? Well, actually what you can do is you can create... What is going on with this? There we go. I'm going to do it. There we go. What you can do is, if you're a little bit braver and you push more line work on these bows, abnormally so, and it doesn't have to be this bright, by the way, because I'm just doing it to show for when I zoom out. But if you're brave enough to push harder lines in this, as opposed to painting as softly as you have everywhere, you create leading lines into the gem, which once again pushes the focal point, right? And it's also the same with the horns. If you're braver with the line work on the horns, let's just use that, doesn't really matter, and you have harder lines on those horns, well, what this does is it's physically pointing into the head, right? It's physically pointing you. As soon as you look at them, this is a terrible paint over, but you get the idea. As soon as you look at them, you've literally got lines that are pushing you into your focal point. So when someone like Daniel paints this smoothly, this softly, lines become incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And that's something that I would also say, like, is a little bit of a missed opportunity with this. Not everything needs to be soft.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, lovely, amazing, skin's beautiful.
Yeah, yes.
Vanessa's owlbears. Owlbears? Is that an owlbear and a griffin? All right, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it seems. Like I said in the judging video, I think it's super fun, and you've got no questions as to what a certain material is. And I think it could be like the value distribution could maybe be a bit better, but I'm inclined to think that that's down to the white backdrop.
Yeah,
is influencing how I'm seeing value, and especially with the white griffin head on directly behind the white backdrop. But I love this piece. It's really fun. And yeah, I feel like my eyes are going to the appropriate things, so they're going straight to the faces of each of them because of the purple tongue.
Yep.
And the only thing I would maybe think about toning down a bit in terms of painting is maybe the pads of the feet. They're quite bright.
Yep.
And I think you could maybe bring some more tone, but also bring the value down a touch.
These two especially.
Yeah. And just a personal nitpick, I know you said this in the judging video, is the cork on the base.
Yeah.
I'm not really too fussed about it just being 2 layers of cork. It's more the fact that it overhangs the base so much. If that was just a cut, if you cut that nice and cleanly with the edge of the base and have the leaves spilling over, that makes more sense and is more aesthetic in my brain.
Yep.
For me personally.
So for me, I don't have a problem with the overhang. The problem for me, I think the overhang's a little bit too much. The problem for me is I look at that and go, that's corkboard. It's just immersion. The minute I can look at something and go, I know what that is, you're losing immersion in the piece. Like, I can see corkboard. It's not broken.
Yeah.
It's not broken up enough to no longer see that. That's the issue. I love the overhang on the base as a general rule. I think it's just that the corkboard is overhanging too much. What I really like is the leaves overflowing the plinth. Like, I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Yeah, I would argue the only reason why you register it as being corkboard is because it overhangs so much. You can see that it's a uniform thickness across the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I know what that is. That's corkboard. If it was cut onto the edges of the plinth, you wouldn't be able to see that overhang as much. And maybe for the leaves, as much as I love them, I think maybe you could tint them,
paint them
towards the edges a bit more orange, make them darker so you have more of a vignette, because they're nice and bright. But they're bright across the whole board, and that's drawing my eyes down a bit too much. If you were to paint them more orange, make them more dead, then I think it would just benefit the piece a bit more.
Yeah, completely agree. I love this one. I think it's cool. Right, rescue can.
Yeah, I love this one.
I feel like that's the title of the piece, not the title of
style.
who entered it. Who entered this?
Yeah, I don't recognise
Steph's
the
messed
name,
up.
Rescue Can.
Yes. Steph set all of this up, by the way, and she's editing this video, so we get to blame her. Right. So, Lucas, you talk to me about this one while I try and work out who's it from.
Yeah, you don't see this style a lot, and I think it's been executed really well. Like, it's very clean, and like I said in the judging video, you can tell what the materials are. Like the trash can, it still reads nice and shiny to me, even though it's not going to be like mirror shine, but you can tell it's metallic. And the way that they've blended the 3D elements like the Coke can into the 2D painted elements like the pizza and the watermelon on the curbside is just really brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to be tricky for us is that we don't paint in this style.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to necessarily critique it and how we would definitely improve it. We can have suggestions, but I think what has been painted has been done to a really high standard with all the cross-hatching and all the different techniques that they've used to shade things. I think it's really lovely. And breaking up the shapes with all of the little crumbs of the pizza, the dirt around the trash can is great.
Yeah. It is. Like, it's Will, by the way. Will painted this.
Will?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Will's done a great job.
Yeah.
And I think I've lost what I was going to... Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Compared to other people with their bases that being quite large, this is very succinct and to the point. and I think it's the perfect size. You've got enough space for all the elements to do their job, and there's nothing like, it's not too big. It's the right size for this scene.
Yep. I completely agree. I think this is amazing. I think the biggest thing is, you're absolutely right, it's hard for us to judge because we don't paint like this. But it feels natural. There's nothing... I'm looking at it going, there's nothing in this that breaks that immersion. Nothing breaks the illusion. And I think, like, this can is real, I think.
Yeah.
This is painted. Well, I've got to really zoom in to work out if that's real or not, right? It suits. It is so well integrated. I really love it, honestly. Yeah.
It's very hard to critique.
Yeah.
Because I'm inclined to say I would want to see more, like the fur of the raccoon doesn't really feel like fur, but that's down to the style. You can't really make it feel more like fur with this cell shaded style. Maybe like one or two of the highlights on the tail are a bit much, but
those two,
it's hard to say
that one
because it's not ruining the piece for me.
No, I completely
it still
agree.
Looks great.
Yeah, it's a hard one to critique. I think it's wicked. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Right. Okay, this one.
This is your favourite.
This is my favourite. I love it. I love this one so much.
You can start because I know, as I said before, I know nothing about Pokemon.
It's not even known about Pokemon. This is just cool, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. That water's amazing. Straight off.
Yeah.
Water's brilliant. Now, what I would say is this bright part of the water should also be on those splashes.
Yeah.
But the water's incredible. Absolutely love it. Probably the best part of the piece for me. I'm gonna be picky here, right? So if the person seeing this didn't see my feedback video, our judging video with Bruce and Magnus, I was fighting for this all the way, right? Absolutely all the way. Absolutely adore it. So the things that I'm going to be picky about now are really harsh, okay? So the first thing is you must be aware when you're painting a miniature of things that you can relate to real life things, right? Especially things that are a little bit more... Well, let's put it this way. What does that look like?
I hope you're not doing what... I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to do this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
we have to be aware of similarities in things, right? So ultimately,
I am face for you. You can't see my face. I am face palming right now.
Hey, I'm right though, aren't I?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
You are.
So you've got to be aware of these things and move it. You've got to steer away from them, right? Now, granted, it's not their fault. Right, because the sculptor's given it that shape, that perfect shape, and like put it in the middle of the frame, and do you know what I mean? But it's your job as the painter to downplay them, right? Because there's always one immature idiot that's going to go, aha, penis, right? So, because we automatically relate things, right?
Yeah.
So that is a problem. So, firstly, that should not be that bright. It should not be that pink. And it should not have, like, it just needs to be downplayed so much, right? So it needs to be, like, you've got to do something with it. So, and I think it's a really good lesson. The reason why I'm talking about this in the feedback is because it happens all the time. People paint something and there is accidentally something that looks like genitalia, or it looks like something that we have some kind of negative connotation towards, right? Like, I had a student recently and they were painting tattoos and they painted this back tattoo and it was absolutely amazing, right? They did not paint a swastika on this tattoo. But you zoomed out and the pattern showed us a swastika.
Right.
And it's like, that's completely accidental, right? It wasn't even a complete one. The pattern made the shape, right? And you have to go, well, everyone's clearly going to know that's not what it's intended, But if you have to ask the question, if there's any kind of connotation towards it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So this is something that's quite, that you've got to be aware of with your work, because it does happen quite a lot.
Yeah, so in order to fix that, would you just focus more on a cylindrical volume, make it darker so it has less of a less of a tip to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I'd be looking at this is I would be looking to move away from the pink color as much as possible. And I appreciate you're stuck because this is Mew, right? But I would be looking at pushing more of a cylinder, more away from the pink, right? And to be fair, this is something that we would do anyway, where like you make the colors colder, and then you're drawn to it less. But as soon as we start doing this, you're never going to get away from the shape. But just by going, it's not pink anymore, helps.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is not the painter's fault. Like, it's really not, because the sculptor is giving it to us. But
yeah,
it's literally just something that we have to manage. Do you know what I mean? And you can see, like, as soon as, let me just pull that back, with the white highlight and the purple and more blue, it's less of a problem because we're downplaying the tip. As soon as I push the pink back in, it starts to look very fallacy again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think another thing that could help it quite a bit, depending on how you view the lighting scenario, maybe it would get a nice cast shadow from.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
The umbrella, and that could completely negate any issue because it will be in shadow.
Yeah, and you break the shape. Even if you
exactly.
if you had the line, right? So even if you had the line of the cast shadow, right?
Yeah.
That would break the shape. And all of a sudden it's less of an issue. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop rambling about this. You go now.
Okay. I'm going to put my attention onto the base because I think that's what most of us had issues with in terms of judging. It's also down to the photography. It could be painted just as amazingly as the water. It's just the photo's not showing it off. But there's a lot of really intense kind of satin wash kind of effect. It's blowing out the details. So I think maybe a bit more attention to the edges specifically, and just making it so it's a bit more matte, so we can just read what's been painted. Even if it's just a matte varnish, I'm sure that would improve it.
That's fair.
To a degree. And maybe the only thing that I think could be added to the water is maybe where you have objects interacting, like you've got the lilies, the leaves, and the rock, and the perimeter of the water. What I think is quite nice is to outline each of those elements with a kind of mid-tone highlight.
Yeah.
That just gives the water a bit more sheen.
Yeah.
That's going to make the water better, but it may not necessarily make the piece as a whole better because your focal point is the Pokemon. I've forgotten the name already. I'm sorry.
Mew.
But Mew.
Disgust me.
But I think another positive I'll say just before we wrap it up is the texture work on those leaves. It just reads perfect.
Yeah.
Like, to me, they look exactly like dead leaves.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just needs to bring more detail because you've got lots of detail in the leaves and it reads really well. Because I think that's kind of proving my point. Those leaves look a lot matter than the rest of the base. Everything else looks quite wet and satin.
Yeah.
And I can't tell what's going on. There's a lot of shapes that kind of just all blend together.
Yeah.
And I think you could have more light in there, which would then kind of just help Mew pop a lot more because she's so bright compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Cool. All right, next one. Ezekiel.
And you think this is incredibly cute.
I love this. This is cute. I would have a pig if I could, right? I love them. I'm not even exaggerating. I would. If I could have a pig in my house, right? I would. And my dog is the closest dog you'll ever get to a pig. Do you know what I mean? English bulldogs may as well be pigs with hair, right?
Yeah.
So this is like proper cute to me. I absolutely love it. I have a bit of a soft spot for this one.
Comparing it to the mice.
Yeah.
Because we said this in the judging video. It's got black eyes, but it's still reading as cute. And that's down to the facial features and also because it's quite endearing. He's not He hasn't got the sword drawn, basically. He's not going to try and kill you. He's just giving you a nice little smile.
Yeah, he's taking a happy poo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So I do have a soft spot for this, but I'm going to try and be critical here. The helmet is amazing. The pig is less amazing, right? And what I mean by that is the helmet's really nicely done. It's got really nice value range. It's clearly got a nice, strong like shine to it. Lovely amount of contrast, value contrast. And then if you compare it to the pig's body, yes, the pig is going to have less value, but the pig is flat in comparison. It doesn't match the same finish.
Yeah. Like the only thing I would point out in this black and white, it's gone.
I'll bring it back up.
The helmet is lovely, but that central ridge of the helmet is very flat in comparison. It doesn't conform to the overall shape that it's part of.
Yeah.
Just because it's a flat, like a trim detail, doesn't mean that it should behave any differently to the actual shape of the helmet. It's still part of that oval. Yeah. So it should be a bit darker on when it comes down the front.
Yeah. Yeah, completely agree. This bit is too bright.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So I think my biggest piece of feedback with this, and this is something that we talk about so much, is you have to have a consistent finish across it, right? Even if you choose not to have, even if you want to have a decline in finish, right? If you want to have an inconsistent finish across something, that's cool, but it has to consistently change, as opposed to just go, this bit is painted to this finish, and then this bit is painted to a different finish, right? So there's not enough depth in the pig in comparison to the amount of, let's say, depth to the helmet, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In terms of value range.
Absolutely. And the base is... the base is... What's the word? What's the word, Lucas? Because I don't have a middle ground here.
To me, it feels incomplete.
That's a good word. The base is incomplete. Right.
Compared to the rest of the figure, because my eyes didn't go immediately to the base, which is the point of this model. But as soon as you notice it, you're like, it looks a bit incomplete. It looks a bit messy on the edges, and therefore that's why I think it feels incomplete. In terms of time taken, you can see the big drop off. But I know that's the point. The base isn't what you want to look at, but there's a big disparity in terms of finish and colour. I think it's quite flat. Maybe even if you were to add a bit more tufts that are a bit brighter and just fill it out a bit more.
Tufts have to be painted.
Yeah.
Right. And the mud looks like splodges of something with brown paint over them. The mud looks like mud, but it could look a lot like much more. It could just be more. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the biggest thing that would, if we were going to go from the perspective of making it better and cuter, I think just adding more tone to the skin, a bit more pink around the features, especially in the ears, because that's quite dark in there. Yeah. And I know some pigs, they do just have really dark insides of their ears, but I think we can play into kind of the generic things that we associate with cuteness, and that'll be just pink. Just put pink everywhere. Not everywhere, but like around the eye sockets, on the nose, on the underside of I want to call it the jowl, but his chin especially, because that goes really dark. It would be nice to have a nice bounce light in there to give that form. The thing is, we talk about this, it's appearance. We're not painting realistically, right? We don't paint realistically. No. We interpret realism. Yeah. Right? So I've just slapped like pink randomly. And it already looks better. Already looks stronger. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. Right. We got a couple more. This is Derps. This nail's cute. Yeah. Very cute. It absolutely nails cute. The paint job is very clean. Yeah, there's areas that I really love, and there's areas like that don't quite work as much for me. And I'll repeat what I said in the judging video. It's basically the legs of I'll call it a griffin, but the legs are really, 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 really bright. Even more bright than the bunny on top of the head. Yeah. And that just pulls my focus way too far down. I think if that had more
volume and just in general made the value darker, it would keep the focus on the face and the bunny a lot more.
Yeah.
And I understand why it's white, but it's too white.
Yeah, completely agree. And I will say as well, the bunny doesn't have enough darks. Like, so if you look at the darks on the white underneath, the darks on the rest of the bird in general,
yeah,
you don't have any of those darks really on the rabbit itself. So there's also like the rabbit just looks very flat in comparison. It's like
it's quite similar to what we said before in terms of difference in rendering.
Yeah.
And time invested into different elements. The face, how that blends from white to the red is amazing.
Yes.
It's really nice. You can appreciate all the brushstrokes.
Yeah.
But the bunny just feels kind of
an afterthought. Yeah.
To be blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's a really nice piece, like genuinely. And there's an argument to be made, like some volumetric highlights would be nice to enforce the light and that sort of stuff. But I don't know, like we don't always have to paint things that way. Do you know what I mean?
No.
So I think this is really nice. I think for me, the legs, now that you say it, I can see it. Yeah, I can't unsee that. And the rabbit isn't finished to the same. It's just not finished to the same standard, and that's an issue.
Yeah, it would make it a better model, but it wouldn't necessarily make it any cuter. It's cute as bleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so we got the bald bears. So this is basically Spyro knockoff, I guess. Spyro the dragon.
Yeah, and everyone said that this was sad more than cute. I think it's cute. I'm still going with that. I still think he's cute,
I mean,
begging for a treat.
In hindsight, I think it's possible to be both.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's definitely cute. It is sad cute.
Yeah, just like the mouse on the cheese.
Yeah.
But in a different setting.
No.
Different emotion. Yeah.
No, that wasn't cute.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, no. Anyway. Yeah, I do think this is cute. It does come across as sad as well, but as possible to be both.
Yeah.
There's a few things that I really like on this. Honestly,
yeah.
I really like the eyes. I think the eyes have sold the cute. Sorry, I think the eyes have really helped with the cute subject, but I think they're also the reason why this is coming across as sad. And one thing that I do really like this is the shift from the pink to the purple. Like the purple's been used really tactically to make you look at the face.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I absolutely love. I love that sort of thing anyway. So yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts?
I think the purple on the chest going down, or the neck going down to the chest, maybe comes up a bit too far and is a bit too flat. I think it could be more spherical in its shape to kind of reinforce that volume.
Okay.
If you know what I mean, it comes across the neck too flat. I think you kind of should cut out a egg shape from that, or erase an egg shape to give it more shape. And I think that purple could then be used onto the tips of the wings, because that orange is the same color as the eyes, but it goes to yellow instead of purple. And I think that in terms of luminosity, it's taking my eyes away from its eye and looking at the wings. And I think it's a missed opportunity, because the eye is what's selling it as cute, and the wings are just taking a lot of the focal point for me in terms of colour.
Interesting. And what about separating the two? So, for example, if I do this, and push these wings more to blues and purples on the core. I'm not saying this is the right answer. I'm just being like, that you're absolutely right, that they're potentially as alternatives. What this does is it separates that focal point and this wing and turns it into a separate focal point. So it feels a little bit better. The knock-on effect to that is what happens is it makes, and there's a reason why I'm saying this, but it makes this one now abnormally bright.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to manage these things, but the reason why I'm saying this is as soon as you make a decision on what you're going to do, it always has a knock-on effect to everything else. So if we don't do what you're saying and we do that, and make this darker and separate these two as separate focal points, it actually causes a new issue, which you now have to manage, that this wing is now too bright, too distracting from the face itself. And that can still be managed, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
And like another thing you could do is incorporate some more of that yellow, or just a stronger, more vivid kind of outline to the pupil, because it goes from like red to orange, but it doesn't go beyond that point. Yeah. And I think that could just make the eyes more vivid, more eye-catching. And there's a highlight on the top of the top eyelid. There's a highlight that goes across, but then it kind of cuts off at a diagonal.
Yeah, this one.
And I think that diagonal line is what's giving it more of a sad appearance. If it was more just continuously wrapping around the top of the eye, it'll give a more rounded appearance and a bit more cute, I would say.
So you're talking about moving this one so it's further around?
Yeah, because there's a highlight that kind of goes off at a diagonal and goes towards his forehead.
Oh, this one, yeah.
And I think, that diagonal line kind of gives him a certain expression.
So if we remove
if it was more rounded, it just gives him more of a, I don't know, playful look.
Yeah. Maybe. No. It definitely manages the sad, doesn't it? So you're right about the yellow, because it's making the eye pop loads. And changing that line is actually... I didn't catch that. That's a really good catch. Something as simple as that diagonal line changes the features. Changes the
expressions are so finicky. Like the tiniest little line can have...
Yeah, it's a great example.
Maybe that wasn't even like the intent of that line, but it has a response from me that I'm picking up on, and it's like the tiniest things have big reactions, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big effects.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I'd never thought of it. It's really, really good. It's amazing how something as small as that has had an impact.
Yeah, I've only just noticed it now, because we looked at it before and I didn't pick up on it. But just...
I think this really shows the importance of coming back to pieces, right? So, and I've said this quite a lot. Sometimes you really need, like, especially like if you've got deadlines and stuff, like let's say, for example, we talk about competitions. Let's say, for example, we're going to SMC and you've got a piece that you want to take and you're painting it all the time, all the way up until the night before. You don't have that reflection time to see things, right? And it's so powerful to be able to go, I'm going to put that down for a week or a day or a few days. And I'm just going to keep looking at it and I'm going to try and find the flaws, because we get this tunnel vision that we're just looking at it too much and we don't see these things. And I think as like when you're going to a show, that especially can be a problem. And this is why I'm always saying to people, like, if you can, you don't want to be painting up until the last minute, or if you are, you have to have those break points where you're going, I'm going to leave that on my desk and I'm just going to keep coming back to it and having a look at it and seeing what I can find, because we don't see them straight away.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Bold Bear says that all of his challenge entries so far have been quick, one-day things. And the more I look at it, the more I can tell that he's rushed it, because the horns, they're not painted, but they're the undershade, so it kind of reads as like white horns, but they're not painted. But it just shows that he can get a lot done in a short amount of time, but he should definitely spend more than one day on his next entry, because I want to see what he can do. Yeah,
because his work's really good.
It's amazing. Yeah.
All right, cool. I think that's all of them. Right. So, anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No.
Cool.
I'm just looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, so am I. Right. So, as we said, guys, thank you everyone for getting involved. It means a huge amount to us. It's been a really, really great challenge. The next one is a little bit different. We're going back to the 3-month period. So you're going to have 3 months to paint on the subject of dragons and dinos. If you've got any questions, just give us a message in the Discord. If you want to get involved in these challenges, again, just join the Discord. If, for whatever reason, we have forgotten someone or we have missed someone, please send me a DM and we will get you some feedback across. But I've triple-checked it, and so has Steph, so it should be absolutely fine. As always, hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Cheers.